Hi guys, thanks for tuning in to another episode of Nuggets News. Today we've got a special guest and that's Matt, the lead dev from NIX platform, and we're going to talk about privacy and their Ghost protocol, decentralized exchanges and all that sort of thing today. So welcome to the show, Matt.
Thanks a lot, Alex. I appreciate it.
So how did you get into cryptocurrency and how did the NIX platform come about?
Sure. So I guess I got into crypto personally about 3 years ago. Technically, I've known about it for a long time, since 2011, 2012. But technically speaking, I started diving in around 2014 or so. So sort of got interesting then. We were able to monitor everything that's going on. And what happened actually for NIX, NIX is relatively new. So, I've been developing blockchain for a while now, working with outside firms. Then, up until, 2017, early 2017, privacy sector started getting pretty interesting for cryptocurrency. I'm in my head, I'm like, okay, this is really interesting. This could be very useful in the future. It has a huge space that could really affect a lot of people. Bitcoin already has made such a amazing, achievement in the world with what it's done so far. And, there's nothing wrong with how Bitcoin, works, right? It's not supposed to be an anonymous platform, right? The initial white paper even mentioned that. So,
Yeah.
Bitcoin's beautiful. And the privacy sector is very interesting, but there's an issue with everybody trying to do their own thing, right? Everyone's trying to make their own currency, for example, their own privacy currency. And while that's interesting, I can't really say that's sustainable or scalable, because at the end of the day, 10 years from now, when cryptocurrency is adopted, we're just gonna have, like, in our opinion, at NIX platform, we think there's not going to be very many adopted digital currencies out there, right? We're going to move into a segment, like the U.S. dollar. You go all over the world to exchange the U.S. dollar. Everybody accepts it. You go to the U.S. and you want to exchange any other, fiat. Nobody accepts it. You got to go and you got to convert it. So we think that that's how it's going to be with cryptocurrency and digital currencies in general, and feel very powerful about Bitcoin, doing that. So acting as a digital currency is not really the best way to go as a privacy platform, because there's not really a lot of room for a lot of them. And first person in is most likely going to have the benefit of the doubt for the next couple of years.
Yeah. So as you say, your focus is more that cross-chain interoperability and decentralized exchange. So do you want to talk about that before we dive into why privacy is really important?
Yeah. So we'll talk about that right now.
Yeah. If you like, talk about whatever you like, really.
Sure. Yeah. So to piggyback off of what I was saying before, it's really interesting if you can provide privacy to digital currencies, right? If you can use a tool that we have on one chain and act it on another chain indirectly. So we can help Bitcoin like this. We can help Litecoin. We can help a lot of other currencies that don't have privacy built in, but they're fully adopted, and we see that they will be adopted in the future as well. So to go along with that, we created the idea of a DEX manager, or a decentralized exchange manager, where we're not creating just a DEX where people can go and trade in a decentralized fashion. Instead, the really interesting thing about NIX is we like to bridge things, right? We want to support all of cryptocurrency with privacy, so we want to bridge DEXs combined. So what we would do is use a bunch of decentralized exchanges and bridge them with our platform, and add a privacy layer. So you go to our platform, you're able to trade volume to volume from decentralized exchange to the other decentralized exchange in one place, with an additional benefit of privacy. So that's what's really interesting for us. We made an announcement that when we released that we're partnered with BlockNet right now, which is currency about interoperability, and they're working on a decentralized exchange. So them to get them included and involved, so we can have a bridge of communication.
So, just for the average person at home, what we're sort of talking about and why that's a point of difference is, let's say you do an atomic swap from Bitcoin to Litecoin, or we're using some of the Ethereum protocols like 0x, and Ethereum's not really anonymous. It's kind of pseudonymous, and if someone knows someone else's address, so that's kind of that point of difference that you're sort of talking about, that yes, we might be able to do this on some of these other protocols, but they're not necessarily private at all.
Yeah. So, I mean, Ethereum acts as a platform, right, to build digital apps. Bitcoin acts as a digital currency. So all these guys, they have their own purpose and reasoning behind what they do. It's really hard to do everything in one place if you want, you want to be this and you want to be a digital currency and you want to be this. So as the market, evolves, people have to specialize in their certain areas to be the best at what they do. So, so with the decentralized exchange and stuff and all these atomic swaps, they're just, an atomic swap is just a complicated, word for a smart contract, right?
Yeah.
So for Bitcoin's purpose, Bitcoin's had smart contracts since its inception, right?
Yeah.
A lot of people don't understand that. But the difference between, Ethereum and Bitcoin is, Ethereum has Turing-complete contracts and Bitcoin does not.
On-chain settlement versus off-chain as well, I believe. That's kind of that point of difference that Vitalik wanted.
Yeah. So, I mean, they're all trade-offs and they all have their own purpose for whatever the design is. But, each platform or each digital currency will function the way it was designed.
Yeah.
And so going back to Bitcoin, they've had smart contracts since the inception. But what an atomic swap is all it's doing is, between me and Alex, if I want to trade him Bitcoin for Litecoin, the Bitcoin and the Litecoin, he's going to send Litecoin to an address, I'm going to send Bitcoin to an address on my chain. And it's essentially going to be time locked. Right?
Yeah.
So on the chain, it's just time locked, and then on-chain consensus verifies this time lock verification, and if we both follow the rules, then it swaps it for us, and that's all it is.
We have covered it on the channel briefly, yeah. But let's dive in and talk about privacy. So privacy coins have been getting some pushback from governments and from some exchanges delisting. So obviously there's plenty of real world use cases. If I'm running a business and I don't necessarily want you to be able to look at all my addresses and stats, talk about all these real world use cases and why you guys thought this is so important.
Yeah, so privacy is super interesting. And the thing with NIX is, this is the most interesting part of our privacy protocol, is that it's optional, right? So I can't speak on behalf of fully private currencies and what the future for them are, because if the government ends up wanting to ban complete private chains, then they're going to completely ban private chains. There's nothing you can do about it. But NIX acts as an optional privacy mechanism, so you don't have to have privacy on the chain. So spares the grace for that. But the regulation and stuff, right now is kind of in muddy waters. Everything's sort of interesting. Zcash got some good news lately with the SEC, and so I think they're going to push in the right direction. They've been talking positively lately, so we hope for the best, and we hope they come see eye to eye. But privacy with cryptocurrency is important, because what people don't understand is, as the world gets bigger, right, we see issues like with what happened with Facebook, right? Everybody's upset, the data's they're taken advantage of, and a lot of all these other social platforms, not even social platforms, just telecom providers, all these things, right? Everybody's data is breached and nobody knows, and it's, even if they know, they don't care, right? People want convenience over, identity protection, and that's human nature, is to want the easy thing, but it's not, like we need to design things in society that allow people to have the power easily to have privacy, and realize that privacy is a human right, and it's given, right? So
how does your, I know it's always difficult to explain these complicated concepts we've got an audience of all the way from beginners to advanced. So just sort of how does your tech work in terms of that Ghost protocol being private?
Sure. So, yeah, I'll break it down really briefly. Don't want to get too complicated. But, the Ghost protocol is basically built on three aspects. We use one-time addresses, sort of something like what Monero uses for their ring signatures. And we use zero coin protocol for zero knowledge proofs of privacy, which is enabling the optional privacy layer of on-chain privacy.
Yeah.
And then we conceal all of that with Tor I2P. So that's a network privacy layer. So we combine the network privacy with blockchain privacy and one-time addresses to conceal receiver privacy. So sort of the whole entire package there into one, and we're sort of the first ones to take zero coin and do that in that three-layer process. So what's interesting with that is, like I was talking earlier, it's optional privacy. So you want to use our chain, and we have interoperability set, and a company wants to use it for supply chain database. They don't want privacy; they want it all public. Then NIX works for them too. Or if you have like a financial firm who wants to conceal some financial documents or financial information, they can use that optional privacy layer as well.
What do you say to the people that basically their argument is optional privacy and opt-in is almost making it not private because everything before that may be traceable, and then obviously it's not really getting private for where it's maybe going to the next person?
Yeah, so I think there's a huge misconception with optional privacy, right? It's actually a very, very powerful thing if it's done correctly. So to explain the optional privacy protocol, with zero coin, for example, one needs to understand how it actually works. So what's happening is when I want to make a privacy payment or hold my coins in a private location, I send my coins and I convert them into things called zero coins. And these zero coins aren't really coins on chain, but they signify that you own ownership over a coin that you can then recreate from scratch with a zero history, right? So if there's one person on chain doing this, right, doing that, you can see this guy just made a zero coin, right? And then I'm gonna guess the next block, right? The next block he converts a zero coin to a coin. He's the only person on chain that did this. You can guess correctly that that's the guy who did it, without 100% certainty, but 99% of the time you can guess. Now, where it comes interesting is when you have a lot of action on chain and a lot of mixing happening. So if the privacy protocol is being used well, then it gets very interesting. So for zero coin, for example, privacy set, whenever there's a lot of action on chain, is very high. So like I was saying before, if there's only one person using it, the privacy set's very low, so it's not very private at all. When you have a lot of people using it, a lot of different things going on using this protocol, for example, privacy becomes more and more and more secure as as people use it, as more coins enter that privacy mixer. And so, to introduce that concept, we created something called the Ghost Vault with NIX. What the Ghost Vault is essentially just a Ghost Vault. So you are able to send your coins into this vault. And while your coins are in this vault, they're completely private from the chain, right? And then the moment you want to spend them, you can send them to other people, convert them to public coins. Yeah. So the longer they're in the vault, the more private they are. The more people who use the Ghost Vault, the more private the whole entire network is. We're introducing proof of stake into our privacy layer in the future, so it'll incentivize people to make their coins private. In return, you have an entire network that is utilizing the optional privacy, which at that point is super powerful. And I would argue that if you want to argue optional privacy versus full-time privacy at that point, there's really nothing that you can argue heavily, because like I said, you can guess that some coin is a user's coin, but there's no proof. You can't cryptographically ensure that. So it's coming to the question there. So it's kind of an interesting settlement, just because zero coin and optional privacy have always been a misconception, to blockchain enthusiasts.
Yeah.
And just want to clear the air on that a little bit. So what we do at at NIX, we have a lot of people around the world who utilize that privacy protocol purposefully, and we have a lot of mixers. So even without adoption right now with the Ghost protocol, it is still extremely private.
So where would you love to see all this in the future? If it's widely adopted, businesses using this, nice and user-friendly mobile applications, web interfaces, all that sort of thing?
Yeah, so we talk a bit about it on the site. Is we have a roadmap, basically releasing our UI, user-friendly UI, and all these interesting privacy tools in the coming month or two. And then down the road, we're working on that decentralized exchange manager that you mentioned before. And after that, we're going to be working on developer tools, right? So the decentralized exchange manager is just a digital app that we use as a second layer on top of NIX, right? And so there's nothing that stops other people from building second-tier privacy apps on top of NIX. So we'll be developing tools and smart contract tools for users or developers to essentially be able to create their own digital apps that need blockchain privacy. So that's sort of the end goal, is to see large developments from people around the world who want to use the Ghost protocol and use NIX as a platform for digital privacy.
Fantastic. Well, thanks for joining us today, mate. Any final thoughts, and how can everyone follow the progress of the project?
Perfect. So follow, we have our official Twitter account. You go to nixplatform.io, and you guys can get all the information that you want over there. So
I'll put it in the description as well. Yeah.
I'm good.
No worries. Thanks so much for joining us today, Matt, and good luck with it all.
Thanks a lot, Alex.
Cheers, mate.